Hello everyone, I am 8mm Mauser Man. By the time this video releases, I might be at 1,600 subscribers, but this is still my 1,500 subscriber special. So to all of you who are subscribed, thank you so much for watching and supporting me, I really appreciate it. Now for this video, I wanted to do a Q&A style, so I just made a few posts asking people to provide questions, and then I will talk about the answers. So the first one we have comes from Andrew, and he said, about the only one gun video, if there's anything in your collection which you simply could never part with it, be it for sentimental value or pure uniqueness. So what he was talking about was in my if I could only have one gun video. I talked about it from a pretty practical standpoint of if I could only have one thing, what it would be. However, he is asking if there is something in my collection that would be if this was the only gun I would own, this is the one that I would keep, for more sentimental reasons or for things that I'm particularly interested in. And that would be, might not be surprised by this, my M16A1. The reason I picked this one is because I think it is the best balance of a gun that is practical, but also of a gun that fulfills my Milsurp nerdiness. It was possibly used in Vietnam, this one in particular, although the direct model was, so it has a lot of interest in American history. However, it also is a really practical rifle, being that it takes 20 to 30 round magazines, has a decently long barrel for 5.56, which means you can get pretty good velocity. It's also accurate and powerful enough to take out white-tailed deer and those kinds of things. I just kind of see it as a do-everything rifle, but that still fulfills my military surplus desires. Mars said, do you prefer either the AR or AK platforms and why? Also, what has been your experience with both accuracy and reliability-wise? This might not surprise you, seeing as how I'm still holding this. Personally, I say ARs. I prefer them over AKs. It's not necessarily a place of they're better or they're worse. They're just different and they meet my needs. Now, the first thing is ergonomics. I believe that the AR, more than just about any other firearm, is made well for human beings. I like the safety selectors in a good spot. The magazine release is in a good spot. The bolt release is in a good spot. They're just well designed in the ergonomic regard. The second reason is they're more common in the United States, so they're just easier to get your hands on, and because of that, the quality available compared to the price is quite a bit better, in my opinion, for ARs than AKs. What I mean by that is if you have $700 and you're going to buy an AR or an AK, $700 will get you a better AR than it will get you an AK. As far as reliability goes, the only reliability issues that I personally have had with ARs have come down to one thing, and it is gas issues with steel-cased or just low-powered ammo. So in this rifle, because it has the 20-inch barrel, I have not had good luck with steel case in this. I had a few rounds with Tula ammo in this gun where it short-cycled. Now, if you were using good-made ammunition, that's not going to happen. If you're just using ammunition that has a little more juice behind it than a lot of steel-cased ammo does, that's not going to happen. I did have another AR that had a tight chamber, and that did cause some issues with, again, steel-cased ammo. When the gun got dirty, steel-cased ammo just wouldn't extract. So the bolt would go back and it would tear the extractor, and you needed to jam a rod down there to get the steel-cased rounds out. I've never had that problem with brass ammunition. My friend Kurt asked, what would be the best gun and advice for someone to just get into casual target practice? Now, I'm going to assume that he's not talking about self-defense or military surplus history or anything like that, just somebody who wants to go to the range and shoot. And I have two suggestions. That would be a cheap 22 or a cheap 12 or 20 gauge shotgun. The reason for that is because, in my opinion, those guns offer the highest cost to fun ratio. With the 22, you can buy a rifle for somewhere between $100 and $200. Used, sometimes you can even go less than that. And then you can buy 500 rounds for about $50 in some cases. So you take that gun, you take that ammo out to the range, you can blast all day, you spend very little money. You can shoot at pop cans, you can shoot at bowling pins, you can shoot at little pieces of steel, you can shoot at trash, you can shoot at whatever you want and have a good time doing it. With a shotgun, it's pretty similar. I was talking to a friend not too long ago, he said that he had a microwave go bad, so he took it out and he shot it. I'm sure he had a blast just shooting that microwave with a shotgun. Shotguns are a good time. Also, I have a friend, him and I, when we usually go out, we do mostly practical shooting. He has a shot timer, so we try and do little competitions with each other and stuff like that. But we always shoot clay pigeons. We always take our shotguns out and shoot clay pigeons. Clay pigeons are just a lot of fun to shoot. If you've never done it before, I highly recommend it. I'm really not even a shotgun guy, and I love shooting clay pigeons. It's just a blast. Shotguns, again, you can find them for sometimes used. My shotgun was $100, and that was like last year. So you can find decent shotguns for really cheap. It used to be that you could get boxes of 25 shells for $5. Now they're about 10. That's still not bad. You go out with a shotgun, a box of clay pigeons, and a box of shells. You don't spend that much money, and you have a great time. As for advice, I would say two things: humility and have fun. For humility, you don't need to be John Wick right away. I see a lot of guys making this mistake. I've made this mistake too. You take out a gun that you've just bought, you shoot it a few times, and you're like, oh man, I suck, and you give up. You might sell it, you might feel like you're not there yet, or the gun's messed up or something. No, you just suck because you aren't good yet. People are afraid to try so many new things just because they're afraid to suck. It's okay to suck, you just keep on practicing, you watch some YouTube videos, and you get better. Secondly, as long as you're doing it safely, don't be afraid to just have fun. Some people act like when you go out shooting, everything needs to be a training experience. It's okay to just take out a gun and shoot at pop cans. It's okay to just have a good time. Again, because it can't be overstated talking in a casual context, be extra cautious about safety. Look up some YouTube videos on it and make sure you're doing everything in a way where nobody's going to get hurt. Especially with guns, one mistake can be the end of somebody's life. Now, coming off of that serious note, Nick asked, what got you into military surplus? That's a good question, Nick. The first thing is, I've had an interest in history for quite a while. I've really liked it growing up. I liked war history. I liked learning about history and literature in schools. Those things have just always been interesting to me. Secondly, video games and movies. The main reason I wanted to put together an M16A1 was because of Call of Duty Black Ops. And when I say that, I mean the good one, the first one. I was running around as Tank Dempsey shooting zombies with a M16 and thought, wow, that's really cool, I want one of those. So don't knock video games, they have their place. I've gotten into guns for other reasons too, but those are two of the big ones. And then the last one is stuff like YouTube. Forgotten Weapons and other channels like it really got me into guns. I really love 9-hole reviews and just other channels that really focus on the military surplus side of things. I love being able to pick something up and knowing that I'm holding history. The Moistest Nugget asked, what is the best helmet that isn't an infantry helmet? I didn't quite understand this question, so here's my answer. I would say the Mjolnir Mark 6 Battle Armor helmet with a heads-up display. Don't judge, like I said, I like video games. Hobo Factory asked, is or are there any Milsurps that you have pretty much zero interest in ever owning? And if so, why? The answer to this is pretty simple and short. I like to be able to shoot what I own, and so guns where ammo is either unavailable or prohibitively expensive, I'm just not very interested in. That doesn't mean I won't own them at all. I do own a few, but the cost has to be very, very low before I'll consider buying it and allowing it to take up space in my safe. I mean, there are exceptions to this, but personally, my interest usually begins around the time of the turn of the century or around the time of the invention of smokeless powder, and so some of the things before that, I'm just not as interested in. I would say one clear exception is cap and ball revolvers. I would really like to own one of those someday. The Unofficial Cross RCUS channel asked, what is your Holy Grail gun? Now, I do like to be cautious with things like a Holy Grail gun, because in my experience, sometimes we have it in our heads that if we had this thing, then we'd finally be happy, and we could stop collecting and all that kind of stuff. I just don't really buy that logic. For a long time, it was the M16A1. I bought it, I love it, I shoot it, it's great, but I still kind of want to own other things, and I also don't want to put all my hope in that. Anyway, to answer the question he's asking, and I'm not saying that he's a bad person for asking it, one big one would be a Zastava M76, which is a Yugoslavian sniper rifle in 8mm Mauser. And the cool thing is it's basically just an AK chambered up to 8mm. It's a really cool rifle. Now, those are quite expensive, so I don't know if I will ever own one of those. I would love to shoot one someday. Another one, and I probably will never own one of these, but one of those really sketchy 8mm AKs from Pakistan. I see those guns on stuff like Khyber Pass weapons, and I think, that's really cool, I would love to own one of those. Probably would blow up shooting it, but they're just really cool. Importing one of those to the United States would be incredibly costly and probably would never happen, but they are pretty neat. Another option, and this one isn't that expensive, but I've just never put the discretionary income towards it, would be a Sega 12 or one of the common Sega 12 clones. I wouldn't really mind if it was one of the Chinese clones, as long as it's reliable. For me, it's more the thing of the idea of having a 20-round drum full of 12-gauge shotgun ammo just sounds really cool. This next name looks East Asian, so I'm sorry if I mispronounce it, but Wang Ming Ji said, Mauser barrel length velocity comparison when? And to that I say, this is a video I really want to do, and have wanted to do for a long time. That was why I bought my Turkish Mauser. One of the reasons, at least, was to compare the Turkish Mauser with the longer barrel to the 24-47 Mauser with the Kar 98K barrel. However, here's what I'm waiting on. One of my friends has a short-barreled 8mm Mauser that looks to be about the barrel length of a G3340, but it's a really short carbine, like 18 inches. And I want to make sure that when I do that video, I have that rifle too. I'm really excited to shoot it, and I want to film this video, but it's just whenever I can take all three of those rifles to the range at the same time. So, it's coming, I promise. I just don't know when. Joshua asked about a barreled action of a Spanish Mauser, and he said, what are your thoughts on trying to build it into its original military form or making it into a custom rifle? It seems wrong to take this classic rifle and change it, but also so little is left of the original that it kind of feels like fraud or stolen valor to make it look like it's original with mostly new parts. Now to this I say, and I'm going to read what I have written first and explain it, I think you can do whatever you want. In my honest opinion, a barreled action doesn't really maintain all of its historical or collector factor, but also returning it to the original could be really cool. I've seen videos where people unsporterize military surplus rifles, and I think that that is awesome. But also, when you have that much left, it's really not that important to me that you build it back to what it originally was. I think you can kind of do whatever you want with it. Someday I'll do a video where I just talk broadly about my opinion of sporterization versus not sporterizing versus unsporterizing, all those kinds of things. But for right now, that's basically the answer I have. I think you can do what you want freely without disrespecting the history, but also without disrespecting people who have served with that rifle. The Moose asked, how do you find so many cool and obscure ammo variations and countries of origin? Now this is a good question. If you've watched my 8mm Mauser series, I've fired, I think it's somewhere around 20 rounds right now from different countries, different times, all that kind of thing. I have a lot of videos in that series, and I have some others that I haven't shot yet. So where do I find these? Many different places. One answer is Gunbroker. I love Gunbroker. I've bought a lot of things on Gunbroker. You can go there and you can see things that people are offering all around the US and talk to them. I've also used things like Armlist or other websites like it that allow people to list items privately. You do need to be careful with these places because there are a lot of scams, but as long as you're careful, you can find some really cool and unique things there. Another answer is traveling. When I travel to a new city and I'm going to be there for a little while, one of the things I usually do is I stop in at some local gun stores and I see if they have any ammunition that I would like to review or guns I'm interested in picking up. Now, obviously, if I'm in another state, guns can get complicated, but ammunition in most places in the US is pretty fluid. Finally, I've had actually some viewers send me things before, and I've actually made friends with the viewer who did that. It turned out we live in the same town. So if you're ever interested in sending me an item to review, just send an email to the email in the description, and then we can talk about that from there. Okay, one more quick question that somebody asked me. I had somebody ask me, why is your M16 so goofy? And that is a great question. So at the time, I didn't have the barrel clamp I have on this now. I had the thing sitting to the side with the Picatinny rail, and so the flashlight stuck really far out. But probably what I think he was referring to was the gooseneck mount and the duct tape on the handguards. So this M16A1, I sort of built it with the idea of how much can we modernize a retro rifle, using things that make it still look pretty retro, at least to some degree. And so that is what is on this rifle. The gooseneck mount does look kind of silly, but this is something that was made for military contexts. It's not something that is just sold on the commercial market to make it look goofy. As for the duct tape, the reason that I have duct tape around this is because these handguards are old and worn out and they have a pretty strong rattle to them. So I looked at some old pictures from the Vietnam War, and you could see a lot of videos of people duct taping their handguards. I think it's for the same kind of thing. If you're going through the jungle trying to sneak, you don't want these rattling around a whole lot. And when it's solid when you grab it, that's better than if it's loose. As for the sling, I do have this wrapped around the stock in kind of a bulky way, but when it's on your shoulder, it doesn't get in the way. And then the flashlight right here, I just think a flashlight is something that really adds a lot of utility to a modern rifle. You can clamp it on the barrel like that, and that is just a way of making sure that you can see at night. So even though this rifle does look pretty goofy, everything on it is based on items that were available when this rifle was in its later parts of service. And in some cases, this rifle is actually still in service today. However, let's talk briefly about the gooseneck mount. If you watched my video on the optics section of modernizing retro rifles, you might have noticed that I'm not a huge fan of having this optic on this rifle. And so actually, I'm going to take it off. There, that's better. So this is how I think I'm going to keep this rifle for now. Flashlight on the side, sling on, but I'm just going to go with the iron sights. Maybe someday I will replace this. What I think I would like to do is use one of the flat top mounts that goes on the top and then use, I think, a Seymour Railway on top of that. It's a pretty low profile mount. That's one option I'm looking at. The other one is one of those classic Vietnam 4x21 scopes. I think it would just be a way to keep this rifle in a setting that does give it a little bit more ability, having a scope on it, while also keeping it in a way where it looks like it's in that more Vietnam War role. Obviously, the Vietnam War lights didn't have white lights on the side, but I just like the extra capability that that provides. This feels a lot nicer without that extra weight on it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm 8mm Mauser Man. I just hit 1,500 subscribers, and I lived on.
Which proves it's hard to get the best of a man named John.
John.